again, there's an assumption that if you reduce the rhino down to a commodity and you objectify it and you turn it into something that has value because of its ability to reproduce horn, that somehow communities are going to be well off and your governance mechanisms will be perfect and communities will be extremely happy. The problem is that none of the homework has been done around what a market might look like. And the very fact that people who propose the trade do not know what kind of impact a legal trade might have on different segments of consumer demand shows me that there's a massive hidden assumption here that the market will work perfectly provided we regulate it and control it, and communities will be better off as a result. But nobody's thought through the governance mechanisms of exactly how a community trust would be constructed, how the benefits would be distributed, how the acquisition process would work. None of this seems to really have been thought through. And I think, as Colin has mentioned at length, there are plenty of other examples where communities can benefit from rhinos in the wild, because one of the massive risks, if you accept all of the assumptions in the pro-trade arguments about tight regulation and legal control and good governance, assuming away corruption, one of the primary arguments there is that communities will somehow just derive enormous benefit, and no thought has been given to how that money will actually be distributed. So again, I can't see how this works. If the market doesn't respond in the way that pro-traders assume that it will, and demand balloons, in other words, if that demand curve shifts out and you can't supply through extensive breeding, then what's the first thing you're likely to do as an economic actor in this space? You're likely to reduce welfare and move from extensive to intensive breeding. And then we're going to land up with exactly the same problem that we have in the lion bone trade, where you'll have seen the photographs of lions emaciated, full of mange, and being slaughtered at abattoirs that are completely unregulated because their bones are being shipped out to Asian markets. So you get to a point where it doesn't matter what the rhino looks like or how you treat it, and you have problems of inbreeding and so on. So this idea that we're going to save rhinos in the wild by giving a few to communities so that they can dehorn them and allow them to breed at length, that doesn't work if the demand curve responds differently to how you expect it might.
I want to tackle that 6,300.
Yeah.
And that 6,300, we need to break this down, because the majority of those 6,300 are in the Sabi Sands, they're in Madikwe, they're in Velgevonden, they're in Timbavati, they're in Baluli, they're in APNR, they're in Kwandwi, they're in Amakandla, they're in Shamwari, and all these places. So none of those are going to have rhinos go extinct. I'm a rhino owner. I should have declared that up front. I'm a rhino owner. I own a share of a lodge in a reserve, which is a private reserve, where we have a great number of rhinos. And we secure that reserve through every month. All of the owners in the reserve pay money, and we cover the costs of security, etc., etc., etc. And that reserve is financially viable. We have enough tourists coming in, and we have enough gate fees, etc., etc., plus what we chip in ourselves makes this reserve viable. So when you actually take out all the reserves which are going to have rhinos anyway, because it's in their financial interest to protect them, because the owners want to protect them, like the Sabi Sands. I mean, you see the extraordinary effort Sabi Sands gone into. They charge something like 2,000 Rand per person per night in their fees, which goes to rhino conservation and security. And you can comfortably do that, and all these private reserves will make sure that their rhinos are not going to go extinct. So then what is left? So let's assume South Africa's got 20,000 rhinos, and the vast majority on state lands. Then the next big chunk is what's in private lands, which depend on tourism to fund the activities and the protection, etc., etc. That leaves a tiny portion, which is owned by the speculators. So let's just say the speculators, we've got Hume, which has got 1,600, and there's another guy who's got the next biggest owner's got 100, etc., etc. They probably got 2,000 rhino, 10% of the total. Why is 10% trying to jeopardize what's happening in the 90%. And the 90% is funded through tourism, which contributes. Whatever form of tourism, it makes sure that those rhinos are reasonably under control. Yes, our state areas are under siege at the moment, and we do have a rhino poaching problem. But slowly, as we become more militarized and we start to incorporate communities and we get better justice systems and we have set up a whistleblower fund, we'll solve those problems. But what we've clearly shown is that when private sector gets in there and it's in their interest to make sure that we protect rhinos, we can protect rhinos.